Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you designing the solution for one of the popular front-end interview questions asked in companies like Adobe, Cisco, Microsoft, Salesforce, and Hotstar. Okay, the challenge is select all checkboxes. Let's get into the details of the challenge first. Okay, given a select all checkbox, toggle the children's checkboxes in such a way that when the select all button is clicked, all the boxes are checked. Similarly, when the button is toggled, the checkboxes become unchecked. Okay, we should design a component. We should design a component in such a way that that component should have the application should have select all checkbox and then children checkboxes. So when we select or when we check select all checkbox, all the children checkboxes status should be checked. If we uncheck select all checkbox, all the status of children checkboxes should be unchecked. Okay, this is about the solution. This is about the challenge. Okay, now let's see what all the tasks we should consider while designing the solution for this challenge. So we should have a select all checkbox. Okay, any of the individual checkboxes should have their own state. That means if any of the checkboxes is checked, it should reflect. If any of the checkboxes is not selected, the select all checkbox should be unchecked. If all the checkboxes are selected, the select all checkbox should be checked. Okay, these are the tasks or user stories we should consider while designing solution for this challenge. Okay, further, let's consider the data for our checkboxes. This is the data we can use to create checkboxes. Okay, checkboxes. Let's copy this first. We should read the data from this file, from this array, and then use it in our application or in our challenge to design children checkboxes. Okay, let's copy this first. Let's copy and then go to VS Code editor. Here, let me create one folder, that is select all checkboxes. Okay, inside this, let me create one more file, that is list.js, and then paste the data which we copied from the challenge. Okay, let's save it. Now let me create one more file to create select all checkbox component. Okay, select all checkbox. Okay, .jsx. Here let me generate React snippet code using shortcut, that is RAFCE, and then press enter. Okay, let's save it. Copy this, go to app.jsx component and add it there. Okay, now let me import. For that, press Control space and then select the path or import. Okay, now let's see in the browser. Okay, yeah, now it's working. So to open browser in your VS Code, the command is Ctrl+Shift+P and then select the simple browser row. Go there and then we can access any application from there. Localhost 3000. Our application is running on 3000. Now let me start with, if you see the solution or component should look like this, right? So you should have a select all and then children checkboxes. So let me start with the designing UI first, and then we'll go by each task implementation one by one. Okay, for that, let's start with div. Okay, inside div, input. Okay, input Here type should be checkbox, type should be checkbox, and then let me save this, let me save this. Now let's see in the browser. Okay, we haven't given the label here. For checkbox we should provide even the label. Okay, for that label should be select all, label should be select all. Okay, for that select all, let me save it. Yeah, if you see here, now we have our select all checkbox. Let me add some styles for this so that it looks good. Okay, let me add styles. I'm using here Tailwind CSS for styling. Okay, display is flex, items center, padding 4, background gray, background gray 200, and then rounded LG, margin bottom 4. Okay, similarly let's add styles for input checkbox. Okay, height 5, width 5, text blue, that is color blue. Okay, here let's save and then add styles for label as well. Margin left 2, text color gray 700, font semi bold. Okay, let's save, go to browser and then check. Yeah, it's looking good now, it's looking good now. In the similar way, let me implement children checkboxes as well. Okay, for that first let's import the data from list.js file. Okay, data from list.js file, and then use this to design children checkboxes. For that, what I'm going to do is I simply use the data from list and then loop through each data to create children checkboxes. Okay, now let me add a fragmentation here. Why? Because JSX can return only one element, that is you should have only one parent element. Okay, for that let me add fragmentation, and then inside this what I'm going to do is I'm going to use div and then input here should be checkbox, and then label should have a name, that is checkbox name, that is we should read it from item name. Why? Because if you see the list data, it contains, it's an array of objects, having ID and then name for our checkbox. Okay, now let me save this and then let me add styles as well. Okay, before styles we are getting one warning, that is each cell in a list should have a unique key. Okay, because here we are looping through the data and then creating similar elements, right? So it's better to have key for each child so that updates happen properly. For that let me add a key, that is item dot id. Key should be unique, so in our data file we have a id for each checkbox data, right? So I'm using id, it's a unique. Now let me save and then let me add styles for this as well. Let me add styles for this as well. We can simply use Tailwind CSS for this as well. where display should be flex. Okay, padding 2, item center, background gray 100, rounded MD, and then hover over, that is on hover. I want to change the background color to background gray 200. Okay, now the similar way, let me add for our input box as well. For our input box, that is class name, height 5, width 5, text to 600. Same way for label. For label, margin left to text color gray. Okay, text color gray 700. Let's save it and then check in the browser. Yeah, now we are done with designing UI where our application has select all checkbox and then children checkboxes as well. Now the thing is, now what we have to do is we should implement, if any one of the checkboxes is not selected, the select all checkbox should be unchecked, and then if all checkboxes are selected, then also the select all checkbox should be checked. So if all children checkboxes are selected, then our select all checkbox should be checked. If any of the children checkboxes is unchecked, select all checkbox should be unchecked. Okay, for that let me implement the logic. Okay, for that let me implement the logic. First thing what we have to do here is, for that we should add one event to our select all checkbox. Okay, and then one property, that is check property. First let me add event here on change. Okay, on change, not here. Okay, let me go here. First thing is in the children checkboxes, on change, we should handle this event. Okay, we should handle this event, that is handle, let me pass event handler, handle checkbox change, handle checkbox change. Okay, for this we should pass the item ID of our children checkbox. Okay, item ID of our children checkbox. Now what we want to do is, okay, why it's yeah, now good. Now what we have to do is we should implement this event handler. For that let me go here, and then const handle checkbox change, for which we are passing item ID. Okay, item ID. First let me add one state variable to store our actions, that is to store the selected checkboxes information. For that I am going to take one state variable, that is selected items. Okay, set selected items using use state. Here what I'm going, use state. Here what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass an initial value, that is an empty set, that is an empty set. The initial value of our state variable is an empty set, an empty set. Why I'm here, why I'm using set here is, using a set for faster lookup and manipulation of selected items. Okay, that is the reason I'm using set here. Now the thing is, what we want to do is, whenever user perform action, okay, let me save this. Whenever user select or check any checkbox that is in the children, what we want to do is we want to update the selected items state variable. Okay, for that what I'm going to do is, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create one more variable, that is updated selected items, and then copy the existing selected items data. Why? Because it's always good to do manipulation on the newly created array instead of an existing array. That is, it's a kind of best practice. So we should not do modifications on an existing array or set. So it's better to copy and then do the changes and then update back. Okay, for that I'm going to create a new set by copying the existing data, that is selected items, from the state variable. Okay, now after copying here, we should add one condition, that is if the item ID which we passed when user perform an action is already there in the selected items, means that checkbox is already checked. Okay, if it's already checked, what we have to do is we should uncheck that checkbox. For that, what I'm going to do is, if updated selected items dot has item ID, I simply remove that value from selected items state variable. Okay, from selected items state variable. For that, what I'm going to do is updated dot delete, simply pass item ID. This is nothing but deselect item or deselect checkbox, children checkbox. Okay, next is, if it's not part of the selected items, then what we have to do is we should simply add that value to the selected items state variable. For that, what I'm going to do is updated selected items dot add and then item ID. Okay, item ID, that means nothing but select children checkbox. Okay, and then after that we should update the state variable, that is selected items state variable. Set selected items to whatever the updated selected items value. So let me explain the logic one more time here. What exactly we are doing here is, whenever user perform an action on the children checkbox, we are triggering an event, that is on change event, and then where we are actually using one event handler function, that is handle checkbox change, for which we are passing item ID. Now inside that, what we are checking is, we are first copying the existing selected items into new variable, and then we are checking if the item ID is part of the selected items. If it's part of that selected items, that means that checkbox is already checked. So if it's already checked, what we have to do is we should uncheck that value. Okay, we should uncheck that checkbox. For that, I am doing delete. If it's not part of, that means if it's not checked, we should check that checkbox. Okay, that is the reason I am using add. Now the thing is, how exactly we can use this logic to check or uncheck children checkboxes based on user action is, we simply add one property here, that is checked property, for which I'm going to pass, or I'm going to use a condition. Here, if you, for a checked property, you should either pass false or true as a boolean value. Instead of hard coding the logic, what I'm going to do here is, I simply going to use selected items state variable, where I'm going to store, or where I'm storing all the children checkboxes information, whether checked or unchecked. If it's checked, we add it to the selected items. If it's not checked, that is unchecked, then we remove from the selected items. For that, I'm using this. If it's part of selected items state variable, that is the item ID, is simply use this logic. That means it pass If it's part of this selected items, it becomes true. Then our checkbox will be checked. If it's not part of the selected items list, set, the value will be false. Then our checkbox will be unchecked. Okay. Let's see here first. Let's go here. Yeah, if you see here, now it's working fine. We are able to check and then uncheck. Okay. Now the thing is, when we select all of these checkboxes, all of the children checkboxes, our select all checkbox should be checked. Okay. Now let's implement that logic here. For that, what we have to do is we should take one variable const is select all, for which the value will be based on a condition, that is, if selected items dot size is equal to the length of list. That means if all the children checkboxes are selected, then is select all should be true, else it's false. Okay. Now using this value, I'm going to update the functionality or the status of select all checkbox using this logic. For that, what I'm going to do here is, for that, first we should add one. Okay. Here we don't need to add anything here. First, let me add a property, that is checked equal to, the condition here is select all, right? Is select all. Now let's save this. Let's go browser. Let's go to browser. If you see here, let me refresh and then try again. Now let's try selecting all children checkboxes and then see whether our select all checkbox status changed to checked or not. You see here, it's changed. Now unselect any one of them, then any one of the children checkboxes, then select all checkbox should be unchecked. Let's see here, it's working. Okay. Now with this, we are done with implementing logic to update the status of select all checkbox based on the status of children checkboxes. Okay. Now the thing what we have to do is reverse way. Let's say if I check select all checkbox, if I select all checkbox, the status of all children checkboxes should be checked. Okay. If I uncheck select all, the status of all children checkboxes should be unchecked. That we have to implement. For that, let's go here. For that, let me add one event, that is on change handle select all change. Okay, select all change. Now let's implement this. Go here. Okay, const okay. Now the thing is, what we have to do is, if the checkbox is already selected, when I select or check or click on that select all checkbox, then it should be kind of a uncheck, right? If it's already selected here, let me explain here. If it's already selected, that means if already checked, when we click on it again, it should be kind of unchecked. If it's unchecked, when we click on it, it's kind of a checked. Okay. For that, we should provide an implementation. If it's already selected, if is select all is true, that means select all checkbox is checked. Then what we have to do is, when user perform action on it, it's a kind of uncheck select all checkbox, right? For that, what I'm going to do is, I simply update the value of selected items state variable to an empty. Okay, state variable to an empty. Okay, simply let's make it empty so that all children checkboxes also will be unchecked. It's nothing but deselect all. Okay, now the other condition is if this select all is not true, that means if it's false means select all checkbox is not checked. Okay, else we should kind of select all, right? Simply update the state variable value with the all the data available in the list, all the data available in the list. Okay, new set. Okay, where I'm going to use list, the value data from list, map it. Okay, use map function to loop through all the data available in the list in such a way that we simply add the item ID to the selector, to the state variable, that is selected items state variable. Okay, item dot id. Okay, what exactly we are doing here is it's kind of select all. Okay, it's kind of select all. Now let's go to browser and then refresh it here. Now click on or check select all checkbox. See here, when we check select all checkbox, all the children checkboxes are checked. Let's uncheck it and then see all the children checkboxes status is kind of unchecked. See, it's working now. Now if you observe, our solution is working in two ways. One is when we click on select all children checkboxes are checked. When we uncheck select all children checkboxes are unchecked. When we select all checkboxes, that is when we check all select all children checkboxes, our select all checkbox is checked. If any one of the children checkboxes unchecked, our select all checkbox is unchecked. Okay, this is about our solution for the challenge where we implemented all the functionalities as per the challenge, that is both two ways. Okay, when we select all children checkboxes checked. When we unselect select all children checkboxes unchecked. Okay, now it's working as per our challenge requirement. Okay, yeah, this is all about our solution, and that's it for today. If you found this video useful, please do subscribe and like for more technical tips and then tutorials. Thanks for watching. See you in next video.